Good morning, everyone. Buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos. Happy Thursday. It's a beautiful, gloomy day in Brownsville, Texas. And, we hope that your day is off to a great start. My name is Esme Villarreal. I am the president and CEO of your local chamber, the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce. We are, we're excited to continue to bring educational webinar series to our businesses, our community, and of course, the audience that continues to watch us live on Facebook and or are utilizing Zoom. We're very happy to serve our community, and we're very happy to have the ability to bring to you an array of wonderful speakers that can continuously update us of the state of our education, our workforce, of course, our health, and the existing world pandemic, health, and of course, economic crisis that we're all experiencing. As we continue again to adapt to the unprecedented situation, we're forced to rethink and adjust to our businesses, and of course our business model by fast tracking and better utilizing and enhancing the internet. As we all know nowadays, we're all connected through Zoom, through GoToMeetings, FaceTime. It has become the new norm. And I think slowly and gradually we'll become better acquainted with it. I always, start with different stories through these webinars. For those that know me well enough that know that I'm not the techiest person. And I was just, talking to others earlier. I have the great pleasure to have a wonderful team that takes care of everything behind the scenes. And I'm just trying to figure out how to look straight to the camera and avoid moving anything that could ruin this. I am better up on the podium talking to people and going to people and, more of a face-to-face person, but I, like yourself, am trying to do my best and try to get better at this new norm for all of us. We invite you to share this information with your colleagues, your friends, or anyone that could benefit from today's topic, which is of great importance to all of us. Again, we're live on Facebook. You can follow us through Brownsville Chamber, or for those that received our emails, you can go ahead and register through the actual link provided, which is via Zoom. As we continue to move forward with today's program, today's topic is education, and we have the great honor to have with us once again Commissioner Mike Morath, which will be discussing the future landscape of education. Before we began the actual seminar, talking to him, and we were talking. The last time that I got to see him was when he was our guest speaker for our State of Education and collaborating with our community partner United Way. And we had the ability then to host and have close to 300 participants, a great lunch, and we truly miss those days in which we would, have the ability to say hi, hug everyone and hear everyone laugh and smile and network and grow their businesses together. But, we adapt. And I think that's what we Texans do better. We adapt to the new situation, we adapt to the new normal, but that allows us also to be more creative and to do things differently. And that leads me to the introduction of, our guest speaker for today. But, before I do so, I would like to take the opportunity to utilize this platform and really, take the opportunity to give a very special recognition to our educators and to the parents. We are very proud of your way to very rapidly and quickly adapt to the new way of education, or the new way of educating our students, our young minds. I am not a parent myself, but I do have my friends and colleagues that are parents, and I think this has been, an opportunity or an eye-opening experience, for lack of better words, to really get to value more the job of our educators, to really understand and comprehend the importance of those teachers that are there all the time with our, with our students, with their children. It is amazing to see how both the parents are now educators or have become educators, right, through the process, and the educators are now connecting with their students and growing their students in different ways. You know, it's wonderful how quickly they adapted, and they continue to provide our children with support to continue their educational journey. I think it is important that we all take the time to reach out either by a call, a text, or Zoom, or any other, of course, avenue to really thank our educators for all their hard work, our parents for, you know, being able to still work from home, still be a mom, a dad, and still be able to help and assist with their homework. I think that COVID-19 has truly changed the world and has changed the way that we do everything nowadays. So, you know, as I said, thank you very much. This is a genuine, heartfelt thank you on behalf of my team, our board of directors, and everyone at the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce. We're proud of everything that you do every single day. So as I mentioned, today's guest speaker is a friend of the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce. We've had the ability and honor to have him, of course, join us in previous events. Commissioner Mike Morath was appointed by Governor Greg Abbott. He took office as Commissioner of Education in January 2016 and was unanimously confirmed by the Texas State 85th Legislature in March of 2017. As Commissioner, he heads the Texas Education Agency, which oversees pre-kindergarten through high school education for more than 5.5 million students enrolled in both traditional independent school districts and public charter schools. Prior to becoming the state's education commissioner, Morath served on the Dallas Independent School District Board of Trustees for more than 4 years. During that time, he focused on academic improvements, and by his final year on the board, DISD had seen improvements in various areas, including kindergarten readiness, math proficiency, and graduation rates. A strong advocate of public education, Commissioner Morath graduated from Garland High School in the Garland Independent School District. And thanks to the great public school education he received in Texas, he went on to earn a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from George Washington University in 2.5 years. While starting his first company, Commissioner Morath was asked to teach an advanced computer science class at his school alma mater, but after the previous teacher resigned suddenly. He taught through the school year until a permanent teacher was hired and remains amazed at how difficult it is to teach. With a belief system that continually calls him to serve others, Commissioner Morath has participated in numerous volunteer activities, including church missions team, schools, and juvenile justice facilities, and serving as a mentor Big Brother. While in Dallas, he helped organize a trip to orphanages in southern India to set up clean running water systems, and volunteer at an clinic in rural Mexico, where he met another volunteer, Dr. Laura Vandra, who is now his wife. What a wonderful trip. And then of course, now they're proud parents of daughters and 2 sons. Commissioner Morath, we're happy to have you. We're so excited to have the ability to receive an update on your behalf regarding the future landscape of education. You know, once again, we welcome you to our beautiful city of Brownsville, though this time around it's virtually, but you know that you can always call Brownsville your home. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, yes, I'm sorry. It was cutting off, and I apologize if we encounter some technical difficulties, because for those that may not know, we're literally on the border by the sea, and at times we do have some power outages, and it happened yesterday the whole day. So I do apologize in advance should we have some delays throughout the program.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here, and it's a privilege to talk to you and your guest visitors about the challenges that we face in public education in a context of what is happening with the coronavirus broadly. This has been a massive disruption, started in mid-March, and it has caused a huge number of changes in all of our lives, and in education in particular. We have taken the precautionary measure of shutting down all in-person instruction for the duration of this school year, which is really fast approaching an end. We have, in consultation with public health officials, medical experts, researchers, been working on updated guidance for how in-person instruction can happen safely to support a return of students to schools. But even when that is allowed, it won't be normal. It won't be like it was, say, in February, as we take a number of precautions, including social distancing measures and hygiene practices for both staff and for students. In the meantime, we have transitioned collectively to a remote instruction environment. This is where teachers are checking in on kids remotely, sometimes daily, sometimes less than daily. If the family has internet access and a device at home, then a lot of that is happening online. And if they don't, then packets are going back and forth and people are checking in via cell phone. And it's been a huge shift for educators all over the state of Texas who love their kids and want to see them and hug them every day, and now sometimes aren't able to. But it's a commitment that educators have to kids, and I think our system is making those shifts as well as we can. It's a very big state with about 5.5 million kids in our public school system, over 350,000 teachers. And so we've all transitioned all at once to this new environment. We at TEA are working to support our school system leaders in making those changes, and then also prepare for what education will look like in the fall and beyond as we deal with this new reality that coronavirus has put on us. But we've been working pretty fast and furious to try to create options. So a few things that have been stood up in the last 2 months that might be worth mentioning. We created a resource for both parents and for educators called texasHomeLearning.org. It actually includes up to 8 weeks worth of lessons to close the school year out that moms can execute at their house, that teachers can help support the students remotely. At the elementary level, all the materials are available both in English and in Spanish. And for folks who have internet access with computers at home, there are lots of online tools, all made available free of charge for families all over the state of Texas to keep learning going. That's in no small measure what my wife and I are using. We have 4 very young children, 2 of them old enough to be in public school, and we attend school here in the Austin area. And as we've transitioned to being full-time homeschool supportive parents in conjunction with talking to our teachers every day, we're using a lot of these free tools to help support learning in the household while our children steadily go more and more stir crazy during the time period. And in addition to TexasHomeLearning.org, we have done a tremendous amount to try to support special education services during this time period, and in fact stood up a way for speech language therapies, which are needed for about 250,000 students around the state of Texas, to happen in a remote environment, much like the Zoom call, with speech language pathologists providing the same kind of intervention supports for kids that need that, which is critical to help those kids grow in their reading and writing proficiency as well. So we also have created tools for parents, a free optional end of year assessment, a diagnostic tool that mama can use with their kiddos to see how much they have learned this school year and see what gaps may have opened up academically that need their attention in the summer and in the fall. And so those free tools are available online that you can access on our website for any parent to use with their kids. And for kids in a dual language environment, those assessments are also available in Spanish, much like they would be if administered in the school directly. So we're seeing hundreds of thousands of folks in Texas take advantage of that just to get a good handle on where their kids are, because we want to make sure our kids are continuing to grow academically even during this time period. So those are a few things that we've been working on, but there's a lot more than that. If you go to our coronavirus website, the tea.texas.gov/coronavirus. We've stood up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of documentation to help school system leaders, some of those that they then pass on to parents. And we have been hosting calls every other day with superintendents all over the state of Texas to try to help share best practices and help us all collectively respond to the challenges of teaching during a time of COVID-19. So that being said, I'm happy to take questions, because I know that you've got a lot of questions that came in before the Zoom meeting started, and I'm happy to try to answer whatever questions I can.
Thank you. And it actually aligns, some of the questions that received align perfectly to what you just mentioned. There's so much that we don't know yet of what the future holds for all of us, and of course for students. One of the questions that was received earlier, states the following: what does the future landscape of education look like for the K-12 grade system when what we used to know as normal is no longer the normal? And what is the normal now?
Yeah, when we come back to school in the fall, it's not going to be quite the same. One, we anticipate large numbers of parents actually not sending their kids to school at all for any number of health concerns. So you can imagine if a child is immunocompromised, if a child's living with an elderly grandmother, and there are concerns about potential viral spread. And we will be accommodating that so that will be not only allowed, but actively supported by school systems around the state. We also think that our schools might have alternative schedules. The curriculum will probably change a little bit so that some of it can happen in school and some of it can happen at home. There are differing kinds of responses based upon the age level of the kid. A 5-year-old student does not take to distance learning the same way that a 17-year-old student takes to distance learning. And we want to make sure that our system accommodates and does what is best for all learners. There are students who need occupational and physical therapies while they're at school. We want to make sure that they have access to that, but that is done in as safe a way as possible, that we minimize the likelihood of viral exposure for all parties involved. We know that we have a number of staff members that they themselves are also in high-risk categories in terms of where their immune system is, and we'll want to make sure that we accommodate them as effectively as we can during this time period. So there are, I think, a huge number of logistical changes to the way school will happen that will vary from location to location, school to school. I think a number of parents may end up shifting if they find that the school that they know and love that is in their backyard, but they can't physically attend anymore. They may look to a different, say, online option, at least for the duration until they're finally able to go back to school. And we want to maximize and empower parents as much as possible during this time period, while also supporting educators to give them the best tooling imaginable. As you can imagine, with 350,000 plus teachers, not all of them were trained to provide distance learning as a teacher. So we want to make sure that we support our teachers as effectively as possible during this time period as well.
Now, and being that said, you mentioned how some parents perhaps, of course, have that concerns regarding the health and well-being of their children, and some may opt to not send them back to school when we open our schools. Would that affect the number of absences? Would that affect, though, the transition of that student to the next school year? How would that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to say I'm not going back to physical school. It's another thing entirely to say I'm not doing school. So we need to do school, but it can be remotely administered. So we want to ensure that our families that want to keep their kids home for health reasons still have access to rigorous educational opportunities, academic opportunities to grow their kids' reading, writing, and math skills and their broader knowledge of the world, and to help continue to reinforce the kids to become the best versions of themselves, just like we do in a traditional school setting as well. We're just working to ensure that we can accommodate all of these alternatives that will be necessary this fall.
Now, and how can we, ensure that all students are learning in the same manner when we know there are existing variations in instructional support and opportunities in distance learning?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we have to do is we got to make sure that we are using the best science and the best diagnostics. This is there's a lot of people that I think they went to class for 13 years. They think they understand what teaching is, but teaching is a very refined science. And it is very difficult to do well, and it involves ensuring that we are delivering content and experiences to students that grow their knowledge and skill base, making and cementing that knowledge and skills into long-term memory as effectively as possible. That means constantly diagnosing students for what they know and what they don't know. I sometimes say that teaching without testing is not teaching, it's talking. So it does involve a rigorous approach to progress monitoring, making sure that if I am responsible for 20 eager young minds and 15 of them mastered the concept that I'm trying to teach, but 5 of them that didn't, I need to know that, and then I need to make adjustments accordingly. So this means that as we support kids who may be learning in a virtual setting, we need to make sure that our approach to diagnosing their progress is robust. And if they're not making the same kind of academic progress as kids in an in-school setting, we need to make sure that we make adjustments because we owe it to them to give them every opportunity to grow academically.
And you mentioned, of course, the 350,000 teachers of 5.5 million students in our state of Texas. Knowing the statistics, and of course understanding that not all Texans have access to the internet, how is it that we're making technology more accessible to our students? Is there existing plans to perhaps work with municipalities, or some students may be left behind, and that's something that we all know we don't want for it to happen?
Yeah, so last week, Governor Abbott launched Operation Connectivity, which has the stated mission of ensuring that every student in Texas has access to internet at home and devices to take advantage of internet at home. And so we have a broad task force that's working to bring every resource to bear to partner with private industry and cities and counties as effectively as possible to ensure that we can bridge the digital divide as rapidly as possible for all of our families. So that is very much a stated objective of the state, and we're working earnestly towards that. That comes off of years of investment that the legislature has made in this. So a couple of sessions back, the legislature authorized the build out of fiber optics networks in school districts all over the state of Texas to a total of $250 million additional dollars for fiber optics infrastructure, specifically for schools. So that investment has proven to be very beneficial in our current time period, because there are few school locations that don't have access to fiber. And now the key is to ensure that broadband internet access is making it into homes as well.
Now, we talk about the importance of our students being educated, and the importance of course, regardless of going back physically to school, as you said earlier, or going to school and attending school from home. How are we preparing our own educators? Are our teachers receiving the professional development that they need to continue distance learning?
Yes. So the short answer is each school district works pretty aggressively to support their teachers with ongoing training and professional development opportunities. We at the state agency level have also stood up a variety of resources to help support our teachers with training. We have a network of 20 regional service centers that provide this kind of support on an ongoing basis. It's been a pretty rapid response. As you can imagine, there's a bit of a triage approach given as the virus hit, schools were closed. we have to first, let's make sure, we can feed our kids. Second, let's make sure that we are working to ensure device access and that curricular resources are getting out there. Third, let's make sure that we support the continuous professional growth of our teachers in how they can be excellent in providing distance learning. So that is happening pretty aggressively all over the state of Texas.
Now, you just mentioned something that is very important. We, living in Brownsville, representing Brownsville, we understand that Brownsville continues to be the poorest city in our nation. And of course, we understand the lack of resources for some of our students, in which unfortunately may only get to eat once or twice. And while being at school, those were the meals that they would receive throughout the day. We know of our district locally, and of course our charter schools have been aggressively continuing to provide food for these students. Though, as we continue with the school year, which we're about to start the next academic school year, do we have any plans to continue to serve, those students that unfortunately don't have the ability or the resources to have 3 meals throughout the day, even if they're not going to school?
Yes, absolutely. So we have actually stood up a website. You can go to texasschools.gov, and there's a meal finder on there where you can find out every school location that is doing meal distribution sites during this time period. Those distribution opportunities are likely to continue through the summer and in the fall for all the families that might not be able to make it back to in school in person.
And I think that's something that we all appreciate, and it's a little off subject, but here locally, our United Way, our Brownsville Wellness Coalition, our City of Brownsville, and others have come together to really continue to fight hunger. And I think that's something that we're very proud of. COVID-19, and I keep on saying it all the time, COVID-19 has really brought us closer, apart but together. And this has really changed how we as a community see each other, how we support each other. And we're very happy that we have great nonprofits and a great city that supports these initiatives and efforts. And we also applaud, those efforts to have that information available. We understand that not everyone perhaps might be able to have quick access to a meal or two throughout the day. So that we thank you for very, very much to have that information on your website. Now, another question received was, it had stated how back, I guess, March 20th, President Donald Trump announced that the Department of Education would be waiving federal requirements for state standardized testing. How does this affect our students?
Well, what it unfortunately does is it sort of blinds us to how well our students are performing. It's as if we know that there's a giant medical crisis, and in order to address it, we stop any medical testing. But the logistics were such that we had to not administer the test. We don't have kids in school in which to administer the diagnostic. So what we have worked, as I mentioned before, is to stand up optional assessments that people can administer in their homes to try to get a sense for where their kids are. We will also be launching a back to school, a beginning of year diagnostic to try to discern where our students are in terms of their reading skills, their mathematics skills. There's many researchers have projected a very significant COVID slide. You can imagine a third grader rising to fourth grade in the fall. This fall might not be anywhere close to where a beginning fourth grader should be. And so we will be putting tools in the hands of all of our districts to try to get a sense of that, and then begin to adjust their instructional practices accordingly. We cannot allow the public health crisis to become a permanent economic crisis. Our kids learn valuable bits of knowledge and skills while they're going to schools to equip them to pursue the American dream. And if we have a significant regression in what we're able to teach our kids, then that could have significant consequences to their prospects if they're just not as literate as their peers, a generation before. So we're very dedicated to ensuring that we create tooling for teachers and parents so that they know where their kids are and that they can respond accordingly. And we're also, committed to supporting performance improvements. So we don't live in a utopia. Our educators have responded like heroes to this crisis, doing everything possible in a very short period of time, working an innumerable amount of hours, moving mountains to help kids. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily good enough yet for all of our kids. So what do we do to ensure that the practices that we're doing next week are better than the practices that we did last week? For that reason, we have to have these kinds of assessments and an honest analysis of where our students are today and how well we have supported them and how we need to improve in the future.
And I think that overall there's so many unanswered questions, and I understand that we don't have all the answers. We don't know when this is going to end, but what we do know is that education is key to the success of course, our children, to the growth of our economy, how we continue to prepare our leaders for the next jobs. And we also have learned that we've actually have created new jobs that we never thought we would need simply because of COVID-19. So I believe this is also an opportunity, or COVID-19 should also be seen as an opportunity for growth. And with that, we continuously receive questions, and one of the questions that people are always asking us directly regards to education is, well, what's going to happen? What's the future? How are we going to make sure that when we go back in August, everything's going to be fine? And I think that we cannot say things will be fine, but I think that we can say that we will make our best attempt for it to be a safe environment. What are the precautions and the measures being taken by, of course, our districts and of course our educators as a whole to be ready to go back to school in fall? And in addition, are we going back to school in fall?
Yeah, this is a great question to end on. We are gonna continue to have school in Texas. In-person instruction, I can't answer with precision exactly what that will look like, but we will have in-person instruction as well, as I said, with a huge number of accommodations. We have posted specific guidance that's informed by the best medical science on the practices that school districts need to engage in today to make sure that their staff and their students that are visiting their campuses today remain safe. So you can go to tea.texas.gov/coronavirus and you can see all those precautions. It involves things like asking families screening questions before they come back in. Does anybody in the house have a fever? Does anybody have any of these symptoms? If so, keep the kid home until that passes. It involves making sure that on entry there's hand washing, hand sanitizing, and that there's twice a day supervised hand washing for all students. There are a number of school districts that will undoubtedly be requiring both staff and students, where it's developmentally appropriate for students, to wear masks or face coverings. And we're working on ensuring the availability of a plentiful supply of masks for our schools in the fall. There are any number of logistical adjustments, like serving lunch only in the classroom. So if you can reduce the frequency with which groups of students interact with other groups of students, then you can reduce the likelihood that any virus spreads. It's also, I think, important to bear in mind that the virus appears to be significantly less risky for kids than it is for everyone else. It's not to say that there's no risk. Unfortunately, we've had deaths from this virus in every age category. But for reasons that are not fully understood, kids seem to be weathering this typically the same way they would weather a cold or a flu, whereas for adults, it's far more risky. And so that's also being, it's something of relevance when we think about having schools be opened again.
Commissioner Morath, we want to thank you for your time, of course, for the great information provided today. And also, please, we want to express our gratitude for all that you and your team do to continue to support our educators, our children, and of course, the importance of being able to provide information to our parents to bring some peace of mind of how we're all, in this together and working together for the well-being of our students and, of course, the future of education. Sir, we look forward to welcome you again to Brownsville. Perhaps this year, perhaps next, we don't know. But until then, do know that you have friends in Brownsville, Texas. And, with that, we thank you, our educators and our parents, for everything that you do every single day, 24/7, to make sure that our children continue to learn every single day. Have a great afternoon, and thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's a blessing to be able to serve kids and educators any way that I can.